Yeah, we're live. It is 7:01. I just clicked over and it's from 7 to 7:01. So I could officially be late as usual. But that's okay. Tonight we're going to talk about intake manifolds. Lots of cool stuff happened today. Most notably, I didn't get my other video up, unfortunately. I'm still working on that. But it's kind of cool. It's about the most common questions I get for a guy just starting out, maybe doing his first turbo LS. So what are the questions that I get and that are very common, but more importantly, those might not be the right questions. So what questions should you be asking when you're going down this road? So that should be good. And it's something I can then refer people to all the time. Hey, look, if you guys have questions about this, what's the best cam? What's the best intake manifold? What's the best turbo? Yada, yada, yada. Go watch this video first. Then we can have a discussion. Hopefully it'll be a little bit of schooling. It'll be awesome. So I'm working on that. But tonight we're going to talk about intake manifolds, and the thumbnail that I have up is a HOLLEY race sniper, not the regular sniper, not the like sissy one, a race sniper, the super manly one, the one that takes all the extra boosts and makes 1,000,000 horsepower. And we need to talk about why I picked that particular manifold when I was looking to make 8 bajillion horsepower or whatever the Gen 4 6-liter stock bottom end motor would actually take. So we were trying to find that out. And as it turned out, I didn't even find that out. I did find out that it would make 1,543 horsepower with the stock block, stock crank, stock rod, stock pistons, and ring gap, and then a host of other good things that went along with that. When we did that motor, the prep that I did, this is for people primarily watching the video that aren't familiar with that. So what we did was try to find out how much power the stock bottom end would take. Again, all of that stock stuff on the bottom end, block, crank, rods, pistons. I even reused the very high mileage rings. They were 250,000 miles. Just took them out, cleaned the pistons up, put ring gap in it, put it back in, ran it that way. We did put some good stuff on it. ARP CA625 studs, so the big double throwdown head studs. MLS gaskets, they were LS9 factory gaskets. We use good heads. We use TrickFlow 225 heads on it. We put a camshaft in it, stage 2 or 3 twin turbo camshaft, I think, from Brian Tooley Racing. And then I picked this intake manifold. And the reason that I picked this intake manifold, there were actually 2 reasons. One, we were trying to hurt low speed power, which we know that these short runner sniper style intake manifolds do. And also I wanted to try something different, and more than me particularly trying to minimize low speed power production and make power the big number that everybody wanted to see at a higher engine speed. I wanted to try something different. I had run lots of stuff, the 4.8 and the 5.3 liter, the previous ones, we did those with fast intake manifolds, which it's good. I mean, and particularly on the 4.8, it still allows us to run high enough engine speeds, which I didn't do on either one of those. And if I wanted to look at those again or redo it, what I would do is I would run more engine speed with those. And so we would get more peak power, and I wouldn't necessarily choose a fast manifold. Not that it doesn't work. They work very well. And in fact, it worked too well. That's the problem, is it made, in addition to making a really good horsepower number, it also made lots and lots of torque, which we don't necessarily need on this application because we're not trying to make the best average power production like you might when you're building a motor. What we were trying to do is just get a big peak number. So we wanted, and we'll do that in the future with other things. We wanted to just get what would have been ideal was a rising boost curve. On the smaller motors, that's easier to come by because we're not making power till later in the engine RPM anyway, because we put big enough turbos on them. And we would have stepped up. When I stepped up to the 6-liter, first doing the Gen 3 and then the Gen 4, we stepped up to twin S475s, which is essentially near 2,000 horsepower worth of turbos. And so we had more than enough turbos. We weren't concerned about spool. We had less back pressure than we had boost pressure. So we had all the good things going for us. On the 4.8 and 5.3, we had much smaller labeled 76 millimeter turbos from CX Racing. And we made 1,200 with one on the 4.8 and then 1,300 with the other, with the 5.3. But I honestly think that we could do much, much better knowing what I know now. And I would think about revisiting this with a 5.3. And that's what I want to talk to Tom Nelson about. What I'd like to do is put together another 5.3 Big Bang motor and take it to Tom's place and see if we can run some of his mirror turbos and maybe fancy the alien intake manifold, because it is a short runner manifold, and then have him do the tuning and stuff and run it on his engine dyno. So that would be my like ideal situation. And then just let's go for broke. Let's see how much power we can make out of it before something lets go in the bottom end. Because I know Tom's probably not ever done that. All of the things he builds are really nice. He probably wouldn't even want me bringing some of this stuff in, but I'll make sure that I clean it all off before it goes into the shop. So if that happens, I will let you know, and that would be cool. But on this intake manifold, I having run the fast before and also a high ram, which also makes good power, I wanted to try the Super Sniper and hadn't ever tested it versus like the high ram or the Pro Flow, which makes kind of very similar power. So I wanted to test it, and as it turned out, it doesn't quite make as much power as the high ram does, but it looks fancy and it was new. And for a lot of guys, that's reason enough that we would want to put something else on our car. A lot of times we want to buy stuff. I mean, I put a lot of stuff on my first Camaro when I was young. My 70 to have split bumper Rally Sport base, don't get excited, base 2-barrel engines. Eventually got a 4-barrel and dual exhaust and all that stuff, but it was a very base car, other than being a very cool split bumper. It was lime green with a white top. Eventually that would morph into red with a black top, and I did the vinyl dye on the top, but I did it on a really hot day. So it was like, after I did it, it was all but permanent. I mean, I could scrub it with brushes and stuff and comment and all kinds of stuff, and that stuff wouldn't come off anymore. So it was like on there. Unfortunately, the same couldn't be said for when I did the interior, when I did the vinyl dye, taking my dark green interior, which is what that car came with. I wanted it to be black. And so when I did it on the interior, a lot of times that stuff would flake off. It wasn't good. I probably didn't treat it as well as I should have. Maybe alcohol wipe everything on the interior would have been better. But on the vinyl top, it worked perfect. And then it would eventually change the color, because red and black, you know, the Camaro should be red. So that's what we did. But I remember having that car, and, you know, it's like anything. You walk out and you see it every day and you're like, oh, that's really cool. But, you know, it'd be really cool is if I had like chrome mud flaps on it, or I had cool dual exhaust tips on it, or I had a front spoiler or a rear spoiler, or in my case, Cal Custom, you know, chrome valve covers with wing nuts on them, and then a chrome coil and a chrome air cleaner, whatever it is, just so that, you know, it's different and you're doing something neat and new. That's part of why we make modifications of these cars, is because you want to, if you're a car guy and it doesn't make you feel better to go out and put different lights or a turbo or a blower or nitrous kit or whatever on your car, then maybe you should think about doing something else, because you should feel a lot better driving your car after you've done something to it. And it doesn't really matter what it is. Obviously, it feels a lot better after you add 7 pounds boost to it. But even if you put something like chrome mud flaps on it, especially with the trucker mud flap girl, if you did that, it should make you feel better about it. And that's why we do a lot of these things. And that intake manifold is a perfect example of that. I just wanted to do something different. I knew that we had way more power than we could use just given the turbos. Forget about the heads or cam or any of the stuff. I knew that we could make all the power that we needed to get to the point of breaking the motor. Little did I know I didn't have enough map sensor, but I figured we could get to the point, we had enough turbos to get to the breaking point of the motor. So even if I missed on making the thing super powerful combination, I would still have lots of, you know, we would just turn the boost up and make more power. So that wasn't a problem, but it was a new one and I hadn't tried it. It was all shiny and billety looking and stuff. And so it was easy to bolt on and it was different. And so that's basically why I did that. And so I would like to revisit another Big Bang LS. And I'm leaning toward a 5.3 to see where we could get with that. I think that if the right 5.3 would go beyond where we've gone with this 6-liter. I think it has the ability to do that if we had everything right. And I would do it with because one thing we didn't do with the 5.3 is, you know, because everybody tells you, oh, the 5.3, it's got more room in between cylinders. You won't blow head gaskets and yada, yada, yada. But one thing I didn't do is we didn't run ice water on it. I didn't run it with the S475s. So it didn't have the exhaust manifolds were terrible. One, they were flipped over shorty truck headers by JBA, which that works fine. But one side had a 2.5-inch tube going to the turbo. The other side had a 3-inch. It was just what we had laying around. The wastegate provisions were all cattywampus and sticking out wherever because we just welded them on for wherever. We did run the same intercooler on all of them, the dual core air to water deal from, and obviously at those lower power levels at 12 and 1300 horsepower, not really a problem, even at 1500 as it turned out. The one thing that did happen when we're getting up near 30 pounds of boost is the way that I configure it every time is I never had a dedicated discharge tube, nothing with V-bands or anything like that on it. It was just hose clamped together. And we would occasionally, while we were testing, when I did the thing with Engine Masters, we would blow the tubes off of them. And then we put the T-bolt clamps on them. And, you know, you got to at least have tubing that has beads on them or something to keep it all together. Obviously, V-bands would be ideal. But I didn't ever want to make a dedicated setup for that combination because we would be just changing so many things. So that would also be consideration, especially if we're talking about going from, like we've gone up to 30 pounds, if we're talking about going from 30 to 40, which would be the range that it would take on the 5.3 to get this thing to make the kind of power, because the 5.3 makes less power than the 6.0 NA, so it makes less power at every pound of boost. We could get a 5.3 like we did with the nitrous motor to make 500 NA. And so we start multiplying things up fairly rapidly, but it's still going to be between 30 and 40 pounds of boost to get everything working the way that we would need to make some, you know, some serious power. So let's see what you guys got going on. Also, we'll leave that for another. I had some cool stuff happen today that might mean more testing. So, but we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that maybe on the morning show. So let's see what you guys got going on. Video's not live yet. It's not. It is. 1 Liter Mafia's in the house. Squirrel's in the house. From Forrester, Australia. Rob, welcome. Eric, Lowrider, Alan. Bad Stang. Nice. Recal. Greeting from a Chrysler K car. Awesome. I hope you're cruising around with your 8-track and stuff, because that would be awesome. And listening to Phil Collins in the air at night, which that probably would be. Is that Genesis? The truck intake surprises me how really good it is. It does. The factory truck intake manifold is very, very good. And that's one of the things I talk about in the video that I'm working on, is that it's the nice thing about if you're turbocharging your first motor and it happens to be an LS, you're in luck, because for almost any conceivable realistic power level that you should be thinking about for your first turbo application, meaning 1,000 horsepower and below, just use the stock throttle body, use the stock intake manifold, use the stock heads, just put springs on them, put almost any kind of camshaft in it. It really couldn't be easier. And then I go over injectors and all that stuff too. We've got a built LQ4 going into a small tire, no prep car, trying to kill torque down low. Went with the BTR Stage 3 turbo cam and a short ram Holley. Hope I can kill power enough. That's going to help. And then maybe oversize the turbos a little bit. Yeah, and then obviously you're going to do the things, you're going to pull timing and stuff. Yeah, up north, that's one thing you got to balance, is with a turbo car, you don't want to kill it all, you want to kill some of it. And the turbo, it's a fine line when you're working with those to get them to like go out the way that you want them to, and then but not kill the tires and just hurt the tires a little bit, just wound them. '63 Chevy 2. I like those. Building a 25.2 chassis for right now. Undercarriage was rotted away. No point to save it. Yeah, so up north, what are you using for what trans and stuff are you using? What is it a 9-inch? What else are you doing to it? Want to do center exit? I'm prepping 302 E7 heads for a 351 Windsor with work adventure conversion van that will hopefully get a turbo in the future, preferably a turbo LQ9. A van tow rig makes sense. Yeah, that's good. So you can hide away inside it. Trailblazer SS intake manifold is very, very good. I talked to David Vizard today, and we talked an awful lot about his formula for choosing camshafts, and I tried to explain to him in the video about the video that I did about why it takes more than that or that there's more than that goes into lots of these cam choices. They don't have anything to do with if you could come up with an optimized cam somehow for whatever combination you have. Dave seems pretty convinced that you can find one that's going to make the most power everywhere. I'd certainly like to see it, but if you could, that's still not the only choice that a person's going to make. That's not the only thing that goes into why a guy chooses a camshaft. There are a lot of other things. Cost is a really big one. Obviously, will it work with a stock converter? How does it sound? What's the idle clip like? All of these things. And Dave had a good point. He's like, well, that's not what they should be looking for in a camshaft. I'm like, that's what I mean. I said, but that's a perfect example of you choosing the thing that you think is right, that you want, like, maximum horsepower, maximum torque, most average horsepower, whatever you're talking about. Even if it's the best cam and no other cam can do what this cam does, that's your specific thing that you want. Everybody else doesn't feel that same way. Even if we think that they should, they don't feel that same way. So we had a long conversation about that, about me making sure that I understand what the formula is and what it applies to and stuff. And the 128 deal, I think he was saying it was primarily for the small block Chevy stuff that he was doing, 10.5-to-1 stuff. But he has other some sort of big program that allows him to figure out all of these things, which is really, really cool. And I'd like to, and I told him that I'm going to test him with it. And then we talked about doing a roller cam versus a flat tappet cam, because, the lift off of the seat is much better with a flat tappet cam, and will it make more power and all of that. So we got into a lot of really good conversation. The TBS intake manifold is good. Yep. Tin Soldier's building my 9-inch housing right now. Going with a Rossler 400 or a Glide. Okay. I mean, you almost have to, right? Getaway. She got a sinus infection. That's not good. Sinus infections are not fun. Big Bang is such a huge influence. I haven't run one for a while, so I think it would be fun. If anybody knows how to get a hold of Turbo Monza, please do so. I would like to get the heads back so I can get that 3800 done. Hey Richard, Kurt, come on, don't go down the golf ball dimple hole again. Yes, hit the thumbs up. Let's see here. I'm scrolling. Paying the bills. Sleeping all day. Work all night and sleep all day. Faceplated gears, 23 spline input from Liberty. Madison's in the house. So I found the answer to what injectors fit my fast LSXRT intake. It comes with a booklet. It fits stock truck injectors, or with an O-ring swap, it'll fit LS2 injectors. Injector Dynamics carries 1300cc LS2s. Cool. Finishing an SVO swap into a 74 hatchback. That's cool. Does increasing the compression on an NA application cause the motor to flow more air if everything else stays the same, assuming the heads are capable of flowing more air? I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I think you're just converting I think you're just converting energy there. I don't know if that's an airflow thing. And I don't have air turbine data because I don't remember doing an exact compression change. So Dan's saying that it's the same, that it is more than likely it's a energy conversion. I love the combination of my short runner Gen 2 LT1 intake and Vortex blower. Very drivable streetcar, easy to manage wheel spin. Yeah, the intake, the LTs are going to be soft down low because they're short runners and it should charge pretty hard on the top. Methanol, guys, I'm just about maxed out on my 1000 cc injectors. That can't support very much power on methanol. That'd be less than 1,000 horsepower methanol. Quite a bit less. Because I can't remember how much more fuel do we need to run with methanol than E85? Another 10% or something? So that would put it down around 850 or 900. Compression promotes thermal efficiency. Not sure about flow. Oh yeah, I got to do my top chat, live chat. There we go. VE doesn't change with compression. Super chat. I did change it over, so I'm going to scroll back and see what we got. St. Louis is in the house. Pick a cam that runs in the RPM range that you want for your engine. Not according to David. I don't have the head back yet, though. But the porting is done. They're just doing the valve job. 3-stroker with a sniper system. What would your guess be on max timing it can run? I don't know anything about the 383 Chevys. Did you tell me what it was back here? Did I not see it? Philip, your question about the 6-liter block, it is different. It's a bigger bore. It is a 4-inch bore where the others are only 3,780, but they can go out to 3,900. Summit Racing has a really great cam calculator. Yeah, that came from Steve over at Cam Motion. Why is the Boxer deemed better than a regular TFSR for a boost application? I don't know why they would do that. I've tested both those manifolds and I tested them NA. That the reason I'm sure that where that comes from is that TFS, the Boxer was designed as their version of the Cartech box or the Hartman box or the Downs Ford box. They all made those back in the day for 5 liters, and TrickFlow just made their version, which was the latest one, I think, probably the best one. And that's what they labeled these. They labeled these as boost manifolds, turbo manifolds, or blower manifolds. The problem is they're not. they're just manifolds because there aren't turbo manifolds and blower manifolds. Well, there are blower manifolds, Roots blower manifolds, the lower ones. But the manifold is just a manifold. It just does what it does and makes power in its RPM range based on its runner length. And then you're adding boost to that. But there's nothing specifically about that makes that a boosted manifold. But having tested the Boxer versus the TFSR, the Boxer seemed like it was better. So also I'm thinking about going back and picking up my Omni because it might not be painted for a while. So I'm thinking about going back to get it so I can get it back here and get it registered and certified or emission certified or whatever, swap certified. And then I can take it down to West Tech and do a bunch of chassis dyno testing with it. Who would you consider the source on Y blocks? I don't know. I've never even seen one. I mean, I've never put one together. I think they've run them at West Tech, but I never have. Went to a turkey rod run this past weekend in the Daytona. It's crazy how common LS turbo motors are now. Oh, the trucker mud flaps are definitely, yes. Let's see. Man, I need to scroll back down. Yeah, the super chats is the little dollar bill. There's a little smiley face and the little dollar bill and then a little plus. And the plus thing for me was the how I put the poll up. Cans are as different as women. I was thinking that maybe increased compression might make a greater scavenging signal and may increase the flow just a little bit. I certainly thought that before doing the testing that I did on nitrous. It's got to change the airflow. It's adding 200 horsepower. How can that not change the airflow? It did change the airflow. It made it go down. It's in an SRT4 and it was 720-ish, and the RCs were starting to get 90% duty. It's better to add a second set or just go with bigger injectors. How is the drivability? Is that an issue? The nice thing is with using methanol is the drivability gets better or can be better with a bigger injector because you need more fuel even like at idle and for driving around. But dual fuel stuff is also cool as long as your ECU will do that. Richard, would you just automatically upgrade jets on, say, a HOLLEY 3310 or a 4779 to make up for the fact that the only gas you can buy is diluted with ethanol and the carb was designed for pure gas? Are you talking about having these winter mixtures or something? Are you talking about that? I would measure it to see what it is and then adjust accordingly because you don't know that when you put that carburetor on some motor, you don't know what the air fuel is. It might be that the jetting and the circuitry and the metering blocks and stuff might already be providing more fuel than the combination needs. So I would look and see what it is, and then I would adjust accordingly. How reliable are LS7 springs for boost? Or do you have a stock camshaft on those? Did he flow the 2.2 head? If so, what kind of numbers does it flow? I don't know. I'll have the numbers when I get the head, I'm sure. There's a woman dump truck driver that had the naked guy mud flaps on her pink dump truck. That's awesome. She should. Is sure about trying to tow in the snow? No, I'm not going to tow it. I'm going to drive it. So it's a street car now, right? I don't know. What's the difference from the LQ4 2004 versus the NBS with no fuel return? What is the gain? If you have an early truck and a later truck intake manifold, like a Trailblazer SS, take a look up on the channel. I have lots of videos that show what the difference between those two are. The gains that you would get from going to a Trailblazer SS style intake manifold would be dependent on the combination that you're testing it on. You're not going to get very much on a stock 4.8. You'll get more on a modified 6-liter. My car has a bit of rust on the bottom, still at the A-pillar. Just got the steel to fix it. Richard, I think you should do a big bang on a 318 Chrysler because we all know the engine is practically indestructible. I don't think we've yet seen a motor that's actually that, but why do we never talk about the most limiting factor of internal combustion engines? Seems to be flame wave propagation. You want to talk about that and not talk about putting turbos on stuff? Richard, you're trying to run stock LS7 lifters? I mean, LS7 springs with that 454 cam. Am I remembering the right one there? You with that cam, you should put springs on it. Need of help. 2004 4.8 with an 02 Camaro. 02 Camaro. Looking for a cam that's suitable for daily driver. Else we'll be building a 6-liter soon for power. Anything that helps. Well, would you just drive it around with a stock cam then? But pick something small if you're going to put a cam in the 4.8. If it's just like a daily driver kind of thing, pick the torque cam or maybe the Truck Norris cam if you have a converter in that thing. Are upgraded push rods for an LS a good idea to spend money on? Lots of engine builders say use big a push rod as possible since it's on the short side of the rocker arm fulcrum. I've tested rocker arm or tested push rods. We tested wall thickness on them and they didn't do anything. And I tested stock ones and then 080 wall, hardened push rods, and then 105 wall, and we didn't see any change in the curve at all. So I don't, and this is with a dual spring cam combination. So I don't know when that comes into play, but it wasn't where we were testing it. Force fed can, I don't know, in mill the PRC 237 CNC head with a 2100 valve and a 4-inch bore, cam 68 without valve cylinder interference to 65 cc's. You want to mill the head, so you want to take 3 cc's off. You want to add compression. You're wondering about piston to valve clearance. None of the information that you're giving me there. I mean, the head is helpful and the valve size is helpful, but we really need to know what piston is in it, what the stroke is, and also what the cam timing is. What do I think of a 3-liter Duramax? It's good. They used to do those back at the show shop. They would put the SVO 2.5 motor top end stuff, the contour stuff, and make them 3 liters. It was pretty cool. It's easier to fix having too much power than too little. That's true. I need to grab a TIG. Aluminum needs to be my arsenal of fabrication capabilities. '70 Chevelle, those are nice. That will probably be my next car. Not a 70. It'll probably be a 71 or a 72, although a 70 I would like. They're just more money. Oh, so we do. We will have a poll. Okay, so listen up. this is complicated. It's not really. So we're comparing a 302, like a DZ 302 ish. It doesn't have to be a DZ 302, but we're comparing a 302, so a 4-inch bore and a 3-inch stroke, to a 305 and a 307. So if we built all of these motors with the same compression, the same heads, presumably a trick flow 175 head, same cam, same compression, same cylinder head, same intake, same carburetor, same headers. Does the 302 make more power than the 305 and the 307 because it has a bigger bore? Ask your community. Wow, that's my question is too long. I'm gonna have to go back. It's making this real difficult for me. Oh, 101. There we go. If built with the same cam, trick flow 175 heads, intake, compression, will a 302 make more horsepower than the 305 and 307? I want to do a video on that. I mean, I'd like to. That would be way too involved, but it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to see what people have. The test that I did, I compared a DZ 302 to a 365 horse 327 and an LT1 350. Those are all different displacement motors. Scott, have you ever tuned a dual fuel system car? I've never done one. I haven't ever done that on the dyno, and I'm not a tuner guy, so that would be something that would be done on the street. If any of you guys are in Wisconsin, I have a clapped out 4-door 71 Le Mans. What motor is in the Le Mans? You're going to test the truck Norris cam with an LY6. I can, but we kind of know what that's going to do since we've already run it on a 4.8 and a 5.3. Saw an interesting interview with John Kazi. Spoke of rust from headers migrating all the way to the intake plenum. So it's getting reversion going in there, or did John just not clean his intake manifold? He probably did. My GTO got my GTO tune, picked up 85 horsepower, 126 foot-pounds. That's a lot. Will you compare a big block 402 versus a small block 400? A small block 400 is going to lose that by a lot because it doesn't have anywhere near enough cylinder head. It'd be even way worse on a small block 400 than it would on a 350 or a 327 or a 302 if you're using stock stuff. The 375 horse 396 is going to make a lot more than a small block 400 will with a fuelie head on it, because the fuelie head just doesn't flow anywhere near enough. What size converter and gears do you recommend for the 4.8 with are these converter and gears? It depends on what size camshaft you put in it. If you can put a converter in it, if you went with like a 2800 or something like that, then you can put more camshaft in it. Not piston valve, valve to cylinder clearance. They say 4-inch bore minimum. I'm afraid milling may get the valve too close to the cylinder wall. That'd be something that you'd have to mock up to see if it's going to work. '70 Chevelle wagon. No, I don't want a wagon though. I want an SS clone. Just check with U-Haul. That might give you a good deal to bring a truck and trailer back to California. How much cam duration increase can the average ECU tolerate before needing to be retuned? If you put any kind of camshaft in there, it should be retuned. I think. I've never tried that on a street car. We did it on Fords way back, but it was a mass air car and it was pretty forgiving. The GMs were not though. The Camaros were not. I think that until you increase the valve size, we wouldn't increase the valve size. The 175 head has a 194 valve. It fits on a 305. An LY6 is a 6-liter, yes. I would guess the combo with the lightest rotating assembly makes the most horsepower. DZ's had a very big dome from the factory. Le Mans has a 350 in it and the second spare one. Nice. Well, if you're where did you say you are? You're up in Michigan somewhere? I can have the Car Farm guys would probably go up and get that if it's a runner. Trying to figure out a good place for turbo wastegate that's not sandwiched between the firewall. I hear you. That's one thing I don't like about that car. If you were to relocate the turbo on the Omni, where would it go? A lot of guys come forward with it where the air intake tube is and stuff. Question is, does the valve to cylinder wall clearance come into effect when these heads flowing properly on the small bores? What you should be asking yourself is not worrying about that part. You should be asking yourself, does the head flow enough to support the power level that I have on that motor? Classic wagon would be good. I do like wagons, but for the Chevelle, for a '70 Chevelle, I've always wanted one like that. My vote is the 302 makes more power for the cylinder. Head has enough spring. I think the short stroke will rev higher and make more power. The cylinder head would have enough spring. We would put spring in it so that they would all rev fine. U-Haul is desperate to get vehicles back to California, really? So should I check with them? I have a built 2012 GM C53. I'm thinking about a turbo kit. Is 12 a 12's not a L83 yet, is it? Daniel's here. Not a runner, needs work or to be parted out. A Volkswagen with a TDI. I do like the TDI cars. Richard, have you used a Holley Stealth 4500? I don't know that I've run one of those on the engine dyno. I think Westech has one, but I don't ever remember putting one of those on. No, and I did because we ran a bunch of 4500 intakes on the LS3 stuff when we ran the stroker, but I think we might have run those with carburetors. I'm gonna have to go back and look at the EFI thing now. I think maybe I'm thinking we did. I think we ran a 4500, but not a TBI though. It would have been a port injected deal, not a throttle body four hole thing. Paul, if everything is equal, 5 more cubic inches should make more power. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the question. Does the bore and stroke or the rod to stroke ratio or whatever, all these other nonsensical things that we talk about, does that make more difference than displacement does? 400 small block versus a 400 big block. We talked about that. They didn't ever make a. I would only be interested really in doing a stock one, and a stock 400 small block versus a stock 396 402 big block is the big block is going to be 100 horsepower better than the small block is. I think about this 262, 265, 267. Yep, all those. Man, why they're California short on U-Hauls? They're all going to Texas. Why would you want to move to Texas? Yeah, shots fired. Richard, is a P1SC or D1SC too much supercharger for the 4.8 liter? No, it's fine. We've run those a lot. I think the hard thing would be finding the 307. A 305 would be easy to find. A 302 is easy to put together if we can't find it. The 307 might be the weird one to try to find. And on the 260 stuff, 262 and a 267 and a 263 or whatever, 265, some of those are going to be hard to find. When using checking springs, you always end up with at least 40 more piston to valve than with running springs. Got to drive a Civic Type R today. Oh, was it an original one? Like the early OG one? Oregon rain gets old. Yeah, I wouldn't want to live there either. I need someplace that's sunny. I actually need to go out to Texas. I need to go see Chad. I haven't visited Chad in a long time. He just recently had a birthday. I'd like to go see him because he's putting together I think he's putting together a cool shop out there. So I need to get back together with him. I'll check with the U-Haul guys and see if there's stuff that would be cool to bring something back. Otherwise, I might even have it shipped back. More snakes in Texas. They do have big rattlesnakes there, and they have indigo snakes, which is cool. I obviously give those guys a hard time, but I like going there. Been through there a lot. I want to see the 350 HO Pontiac versus a 70 LT1. That would be interesting. I'd kind of like to see what's going on there. I just want to do the HO Pontiac. I also want to do a 400 Ram Air 4 also. I would really like to see what that thing does. Let's see how our poll is doing. 55% are on the side of the big bore short stroke 302. Richard, did you ever play the resistors and the map sensors on GMs? I didn't do a lot of GM stuff back then. I was mostly doing Ford stuff because that's what I had. I had a 5-liter. I didn't do a lot of stuff on the factory GM like L98 stuff. I did a lot of that on the engine dyno, but we didn't have to resort to resistors. We did resistor stuff on Hondas. I was told if you wanted to go from Texas to California, they were paying for fuel and free rental. That would be nice. There's no place sunnier than New York. I've been to New York in the winter around Christmas. It was pretty chilly. Any idea how much power you gain from going to fuelie heads to the vortex? I don't know. We'd have to change the intake manifold too, because we'd have to use a different manifold on the vortex heads. And depending on what camshaft you use, you would have to do some work to the fuelie heads to get the right spring on them. But there are guys that argue both ways. I know that we're in classes like the short track stuff where they have to use factory heads. There are guys that swear by both of those. And there are guys that win with both of them. So I don't know. I would suspect that the Vortec head would be better and make more power, but I think it might also come down to which camshaft you're choosing. Because although every cam is a turbo cam, I don't know that every cam is a Vortec headed cam. 706 heads, ported, and a 6-liter intake. Valve's good for a mild cam 5.3. Yes, that does work. And if you're going to do that, it's not a bad idea to unshroud the valve a little bit and maybe go in and do a little bull work. I mean, it's if you got it there. Get a 30-day tag and drive it back. That's a long trip with a lot of stuff that's 40 or 50 years old. Texas has high property taxes. First snow of the year. Either I'm blind to them or they hear me coming, avoid me, but I've never seen a snake in Southern California. There's lots of them down there. Lots of king snakes down there. And lots of rattlesnakes down there too. Lots of racer snakes too. I've caught all of those. Richard, have you ever run a Vortec head on a 305? I have not. I don't think I've ever run a Vortec 305 either. Because whenever I've been to the wrecking yard and I've gotten, I went and grabbed quite a few, like 4 or 5 of the Vortec 350s of the L31s, because we were using them for, much to Steve Brulet's dismay, we were using for our Wheel of Death engine. So we got a few Chevys. I also did to a Ford because I'm an equal opportunity employer. So we blew up a Ford also, but we would put them on I would buy them, and then we would put them on the dyno and configure them, and then we would break them somehow. They would die. One was that we would let let all the oil drain out. One that we tried throwing a bunch of BBs down through and see if those would go back and hit the targets. And I can tell you that you can process like an almost infinite number of like copper or lead BBs, but one stainless stainless nut takes out the whole shebang. Dean, you're thinking that bigger is better? At what point do you convert to and from cathedral heads? Any hard and fast rules, or at least generalities? What is it you're trying to do? I don't know why you would convert from or to a cathedral port head. The reason that I would choose a cathedral port head is because it's the head that already came on the motor that I got from the wrecking yard, whether it's a 4.8 or 5.3 or 6.0. Or I would use the rec port head if the motor that I got from a wrecking yard, which I've never done because I've never found one that has a rec port head on it because I don't find those in wrecking yards. I did end up buying one online. I bought an LY6, but that was the exception. So most of the things I get are all cathedral port stuff, and you can make 1 million horsepower with those. Gen 3, L59, 5.3, 706 heads, stage 2 truck cams. That's going to be fairly small. Will I see enough power and torque gain with a TBS intake swap to be worth the cost and effort? You can only decide. You're the only one that can decide if those gains are worthwhile, if those gains are worth the cost. I don't know what it's going to cost you to make that swap happen, but you're probably talking about 12 to 15 horsepower. It seems to me that all the homeless here in California are out-of-staters. They're all the people that came with the U-Hauls from Texas. Yes. I love my friends from Texas. I need to go out to Texas so I need to find somebody that has a, I've always wanted to shoot a Barrett Light 50. something stronger than a pellet gun. $400 small block Chevy with a 5.8 50 rod versus a 6-inch rod. I've done a 5.7 versus a 6-inch rod comparison, and it didn't do anything. It didn't change power at all. I didn't do it on a 400, though. I did it on a 302, a 327, and a 350. Gopher snakes, lots of gopher snakes here. We catch those a bunch. That's what when I was young, especially, that's what I caught more than anything else. And even now, if we find snakes that are not rattlesnakes, I catch more when I go out and looking. We find more rattlesnakes usually than anything else, which didn't used to be the case. When I was young and we would go out, we would find gopher snakes and ringneck snakes and things. But the whole time when I was young, going out looking for snakes, which was almost every day, certainly during the summer, we would never find any rattlesnakes. And then now when I go out as an adult, I find a lot of them. What I'm looking for, especially in this area, are king snakes because they're the most awesome ones. Larry, a Vortec head out of the box flows 200 or more, so it could have enough to support 400 horsepower with a big enough camshaft in it. C3 Corvettes with big block Chevy require a pancake intake. So it'd be C2 Corvettes then, right? No, that's a C3, right? Yeah, that is. You're right. My bad. I was thinking about the 84, but that's not it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the owner of Westech has one or more of those really flat intake manifolds. Those can't be great compared to the high-rise version. Montoya, your 5.3 GM, DOD delete, all that stuff. I don't know about turbo kits because I don't ever test dedicated turbo kits for some chassis. I've never done that. We just run turbo sizes on things. Shot a 50 in Nevada, Ruger bolt gun at 1 mile. They'll go that far. Chad, actually, I would love to go to Demolition Ranch. And the thing that I wanted him to do is I wanted to bring a motor out there on a run stand and I wanted to see how much firepower it would take to knock the camshaft out the freeze plug out of the back of the block to see if that was even possible. I mean, it's got lifters and everything kind of in the way, so it'd be a pain. But I wanted to bring a couple of motors and shoot them with different caliber things. First of all, you'd want to see it explode the timing chain, all that stuff, because that would kind of be awesome. Pretty easy to get through a tin front cover and then through the cast timing chain setup and then hit the camshaft. And what I want it to do is hit it hard enough that it just pushes the cam right out the back. And if it were spinning on the ground, that would just be awesome. Obviously, we know that can't happen because of spring pressure and lifters. But what happens if we hit it with a 50? What would happen? What happens if we hit it with a 20 millimeter or 30 millimeter cannon? That would be even better. And I would be willing to put motors together to go out and do that. The idealized air-restricted rod ratio gained from 1.92 rod ratio to 1.678 isn't going to count for much. I wholeheartedly agree with that. 350 with a newer Vortec head, board, Eagle, stroker kit. How big is this motor you're talking about? EFI, how much power can it make? All motor, 91 octane. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what camshaft you have. I don't know what intake you have. So I need to know that stuff. If it's a stroker kit, it would be also good to know what the displacement is and what the compression is. My favorite big block Chevy intake is the pancake, since I want to put a 454 under my hood. Yep. Will a factory LS1 intake choke a 4.8? A turbo is going to make that less of a problem. A 4.8 with an LS9 cam and 317 heads, it's going to be a little soft down low. I know, Dave, right? We're never adults. My uncle fired his 300. Oh, nice. All the mud fell off the truck. Yeah, that is good. Do you think the decreased flow on the nitrous test you did is the fact that you're pressurizing the intake with nitrous and it's offering a resistance to natural airflow? You're displacing the air is what you're doing. You're displacing the air with the nitrous. But the stuff that you're displacing has lots and lots of extra oxygen molecules up until it can't do that anymore. Can you explain what hoses you need to reroute to run a sheet metal intake manifold on a C6 Corvette LS2? Do you mean what do you have to change inside the engine compartment? I wouldn't be the right guy to answer that. I mean, I could do it if it was in front of me, but I don't know off the top of my head, having never done that on the car. You can come to Southern Nevada. I used to live in Southern Nevada, and I will set you up with a few rounds of 50 BMG to shoot out of a bolt action. That would be cool. And it would be a cast cam, because the motors that I would pick, I would pick a small block Chevy that has a flat tappet cam. So maybe it would sneak past the lifters, or at least, or parts of it would. Shot a Mauser from Poland. Nice. John, so you think a 20 millimeter would do it? That's what I would hope, because I've seen them shoot tanks and stuff, and I thought that, and I've seen them shoot a 20 millimeter, so I was hoping that would be enough, especially if they put, let's let's put a good round in it. Let's put depleted uranium or tungsten or something. Do you recommend header wrap? It depends. What are you trying to do with it? So let's see how our poll is doing. So 57% are still picking the 302 over the 305 and the 307. We ran header wrap on our turbo Bonneville motor, but we did it for a very specific reason. I don't think that I would do it on a long-term, like daily driver. Fill an oil pan with 10, right? Something will happen there, yeah. Richard, is an LS2 intake good for torque on a 6-liter? Yeah, it's a long runner manifold. It's like this. It would be it's second to the lowest choice that I would make. The LS1 would be the worst. The LS2 would be second for me. I take that back. It would be third. The worst one would be the LS4, then the LS1, the early LS1, then the LS2, and then the LS6 would be my choice. But it will make torque with that camshaft. I met a share with the group, the interaction I had with my first machine shop I took my stuff to. They told me the 317 heads were more desirable than my 823 heads. Yes, hence why I don't use them anymore. She told them, look, okay, I can get lots of 317 heads, and I will come in and trade them for every 823 head you have here. Larry, how much flywheel horsepower to make a 3360 Corvette run 1260s at 112 through an unlocked 700 R4? Go to Walsh Racing and do the math. It's pretty easy. How about shooting them while they're running? That's what we're talking about. That's why I want to bring a run stand. I'm not just going to bring an engine stand and set the motor out there. That's just a target. That's just silly. That's just crazy talk. No, we want it to be running while it happens. Wow. On a run stand, just park it at 4,000 or 5,000 RPM or whatever, and then, let's make it happen. Consensus by the YouTuber Paul is that except for engine block, vehicles provide almost no protection in a gun battle behind, say, a police car. I would feel better being behind there, but if you're going to be behind there, be behind the block, or the axle is another better one than any kind of sheet metal, because that does nothing. Although I see people jump behind wooden tables all the time in the movies. I'm like, I'm not sure that's the way to go. Monza Racer, I wish the heck that we could get an LS4 to dyno with a stock DOD cam and intake and throttle body. Then you'd have to stab in different cams when change the intake and see what it does. I've never run a DOD cam, I don't think, on anything. A 20 millimeter would probably destroy the block away from everything. That's okay. I don't want it to do that, though. What I want it to do is I want it to hit the camshaft and have everything still be spinning and just push the camshaft out. Like they would in a cartoon. In that Dirty Harry movie. Yeah, Thunderbolt and Lightfoot. Twin turbo, pin the gate shot, and then fire away with armor-piercing rounds. You have to run tracers, right? Because I think if I did that with a pellet gun, I don't think it's really going to do anything. How's our poll doing? 50. Oh, it's time to go. What do you guys keep me here this late for? If built the same cam, the 302, 55% are picking the 302 over the obviously much better and in every way more superior 305 and 307, because we know that those are the pinnacle of high performance for Chevrolet small blocks. Pump the pellet gun 100 times. It's only one. Although I do have one of the old Crossmans. I do have one of the old Crossman pumps. which were good until you pump it up enough to blow the seals on them. This one is a spring, so it's just one cock. It's not a pump. Will an original V10 S10 manual trans bolt up to an LS? I don't know if the bell housing is the same. Would a Trailblazer SS be better for torque than an LS2? The Trailblazer SS is better than the LS2. It'll make more average power. Yep. Hook the pellet gun up to a scuba compressor and then diesel it, and you'd be on your way. How do you feel about the old Grumpy 301? You mean his race motor? Obviously, it was cool. Here in North Georgia, you'd be welcome to join the Zealots by taking up the snakes. I'm not that extent. I like them, but not religiously. Yeah, put WD-40 in the barrel. Yep. An LC9 worth messing with? Yeah, definitely. Hey there, I have a stock lower 350. Is it a 350 Chevy? If it is, Vortec heads are good. Kim, did you ever dyno one? Did I ever dyno which one? I'm trying to scroll back and find out. The 301, you mean a 301 was just a bored out 283, right? He's just making his own DZ 302, basically. But not a reproduction of his drag race motor. The pellets do go all crazy and won't track straight. I would imagine so, but I would taper mine. I would make them aerodynamically stable. Actually, we used to like shooting the darts, because in our ballistics scale, it was BB and then multiple BBs, then a pellet, and then the dart. The dart was for big game stuff like squirrels or mountain lions. We thought the Crossmans were a lot, and they were a lot compared to the Daisy lever action, the Daisy Red Riders. You'd be better off just running up and clubbing stuff with that. Does anybody have any? I need a set of stock LS3 heads, so if anybody has any, please let me know. Used to super glue small rifle primers on 22 pellets. Nice. What about the Gen 3 GM aftermarket cheap intakes? I don't know which. Are you talking about, like the aftermarket ones that are Dorman ones? Chips. The block that you would want would be if you're going to get a 4th gen one, you can get a 4th gen iron one, or you can get a 4th gen aluminum 5.3. But don't get a 4th gen aluminum bigger than 5.3 if you're going to turbo it. Richard, mid-rise intake's best for daily. No, don't get a Holley mid-rise. What do I need to do if I switch the LQ4 to an LM7? I don't know about in the car. You're kind of on your own with that. I don't know about the harness stuff. How much harder is it to hit 1,000 horsepower with nitrous versus boost on a 383 LS1? It'd be a lot harder. I've made it at 383s. It made 600 or so, and so you probably could get to 1,000, but you could get to 1,000 with boost with any kind of camshaft and a 4.8. So it'd be a lot easier with boost. If you're trying to diesel those, the WD-40 works good, or the Singer sewing machine oil, any of that stuff. Wild Rose. Yeah, we know what a 301 is. Like I said, it was is them trying to make what Chevrolet eventually did, was make a 4-inch bore and a 3-inch stroke. And on that note, it's time to go. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will see you all tomorrow morning. And what do we got going on? Oh, more announcements about Gen 5 L83 stuff. That's what I have tomorrow morning. So make sure that you're here. Thank you guys all for showing up. I'll see you all in the mañana. Bow, 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 now, now, now.